Welcome, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. It is Friday, January 16th. It's our 10:30, quarter after 10 in the morning meeting. We have BGS with us to give us further updates in terms of our capital budget that we put in place last year in May. This is for FY 26, as well as maybe FY 27, but we can't get into any new capital bill proposals until after the governor has presented state budget next Tuesday. So we have with us from BGS, Joe Asia. And Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you. We're going to be doing the DOC portion, courthouse portion, and the vets home. And anything else that we might want to bring up.
That's fine. My voice is going, has been now for over 2 weeks, so.
Do you have
my
a cold?
No, it's not a cold.
Oh,
Thank you. I might need that also. Very good. So I'll do my best. If not, Karina Cash, my project manager, she's gonna step in for me to do the vets home, and I
hope your voice,
also maybe help that out.
your voice lasts.
It does. It just squeaks a bit and whatnot. Sometimes I do have to repeat myself because it doesn't all come out. So.
Okay, we'll do whatever you need, Joe.
We'll power through. We're here for you. Thank you. You're welcome. So first up, section 3. Planning, design, and construction for HVAC upgrades at the correctional facilities. There were 4 correctional facilities: Southern State, Northern State, Northeast Regional, and the Caledonia Work Camp. The Caledonia Work Camp and the Northeast Regional Facility are basically on the same property, but they're 2 separate facilities. This project's been in the works since 23 when we first started getting design funds for it. What we have done is we put together 2 packages: a temporary relief area and then also the permanent. Right now, all the temporary units are in place or going into place as we speak. Southern State is done for temporary. Newport is done. Northeast Regional Caledonia Work Camp is being done right now. We are just completing the design development phase for the permanent air conditioning for the facilities. We've contracted with the construction managers to help us out because of the layouts of the buildings and how best to, locate the equipment and how to run it throughout the facilities. As the money is appropriated, we will move forward with starting with Springfield, then go to Newport, and then to St. Johnsbury.
So, right now, the temporary ACs, that is for like break rooms and common areas. Is that where you've looked at? It's not the whole system of the whole building.
It is not. It is
just-
either some break rooms like the Southern State. They have a work conference room inside of the pods that is being done down there. In Newport and St. Johnsbury, it's a gym and a library, I believe.
So are these places that both staff and vendors can access, or is it more just staff?
Both, just for both.
So the temporary ACs are in place and ready to go in Springfield and Newport this summer?
In Southern State.
And then you're working on design documents for the St. Johnsbury and the work camp.
For all 3. For permanent.
And permanent.
Yes.
And then the permanent one, is the design documents all completed for the permanent ones for Springfield and Newport?
No, it will be completed soon, and we expect to be out to bid with our construction manager for Springfield in April.
Of this year?
Yes.
Do you have, you had you have about $1.5 million, not quite $1.5 million, unexpended. Is that gonna get you through this project?
I'm not sure until we actually get our prices in. Prices have been all over right now. Or we'll be seeking additional funding.
There's $500,000 there's $1 million that we put in for FY 27, just to give the committee heads up. We put in 4 million in FY 26. And then what we put in was $1 million in FY 27. Correct.
If the funding is there for the permanent work, how long are we looking before that is completed in all facilities?
I'm not sure. I don't think the permanent AC though will be ready for this summer. It depends on delivery of the units.
That would be for Springfield.
Yes,
When would you go out to bid for Newport?
it depends on the amount of funding we receive.
And for Springfield, you go out to bid in April. Usually you might be able to start, if you got the equipment, you could start.
We'll start the construction work in advance as soon as we can, as soon as the contractor's on board, ready to go. And when the unit arrives, we just slide that into place. So we should then quickly up and running.
So would there be any opportunity for air conditioning by the end of this summer in the Springfield
I
facility?
don't know that for sure. Probably not, but I'm not sure.
Definitely next year in 20.
Correct.
And just to follow up, if I missed it, something temporary at least this summer in all of them?
Yes. That is correct.
In the Springfield and Newport.
Springfield, Newport,
Sorry,
and
yes.
St. Johnsburg. Yes.
And those would be in the break rooms for the staff, and then in some areas in the living units.
In the southern state, they're in the living units and they have a core conference training area, workroom. In both Newport and in St. Johnsbury, they're in either the gym or the library. So both staff and incarcerated individuals will be able to access it.
In Springfield, they have the big common room in the front building. There are a lot of meetings and visitation occurs, or when there's any function that goes on or presentations in the big room there in the administrative building. Is that going to be air conditioned at all?
I don't know that one answer.
That's where a lot of folks, that's where a lot of things go on. There. That's where the visitation is as well.
Joe, I'm sure you said this and I just didn't hear it. But on the line where it says northwest greater than 16 million, is that saying that project's for air conditioning is gonna be more than 16 million?
That one, we put the estimate together, it was 16 million. I'd say it's closer to 20 now. But that's just a wild guess.
And that's high compared to the rest of them.
It's most, yes, it's very high.
Why?
Well, 2/3 why? It's the age of the facility, how the existing utilities were run in either tunnels and or the attic space. There's not a lot of room to get in there. Like in St. Johnsbury, the newer facility, however, we have to take equipment and ductwork out to get the existing unit out, and then we back up. The unit's got to be there to put in the unit, and then we're going to have to then finish the ductwork. And so we work our way out of the attic space. Newport has larger attics, so we should be able to make that work.
Thank you.
Sure.
Joe, what's the useful life of the new AC systems we're putting in? 20, 30 years?
Well, it depends on, they last 20 plus years. There's not a lot to them. They can prematurely fail after 10 or 15 years. They're certainly not robust as they were 30 years ago. But we're expecting the life expectancy is 20 years.
Well, at least it'll be a little bit of relief in some of the places. We don't have anyone from DOC here, but I'm just wondering how DOC's relaying this to folks at both Springfield and Newport, as well as the St. Johnsbury facilities, because what I've heard from folks who are in Springfield facility, I think the impression is they're gonna have AC this summer. In the
That was their
facility.
goal.
It's not throughout the whole facility, it's just in specific spots. Maybe that's a question when DOC comes in. To see how they're relaying this to the staff. Because I think there's a misinterpretation right now going on. Because they
What-
think it's the whole facility is going to be AC
Right.
this summer. That's what I've picked up whenever I'm in there. And it is not gonna happen. So then everybody gets blamed again.
Mhm.
It's my concern. Yeah. Anything else on this? Okay. So we'll wait and see on the governor's recommend.
Next up is accessibility upgrades at correctional facilities. We had 3 facilities that were part of a settlement with the Department of Justice. At Southern State, Northern State, and Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility. Most of the work is complete in Southern State. There's just some small items left down there that we have to get finalize on. And same with Chittenden. There's probably maybe 80% of Chittenden is complete. So there's just some other stuff that we have to finish up and will be done. And we started at Northern State, and that is expected to be done this fall. And we do have a deadline, so which I think is really the end of July
This year.
of this year. And in Newport, we're doing sidewalks. So on the outside, so that part of that would be the grass road, and making sure that it runs to their warranty period and the likes of that, but the work that we should have in place should be usable by July 1st. We also have an independent architect providing oversight from Department of Justice. So they have been working with us and seeing what we've been doing. We have gotten one extension from them due to labor and not getting contractors. So we did seek, and they had the oversight architect had no issues with asking for the extension for the work that's being completed.
And that wouldn't violate the deadline of July 20th of this year.
No, that was extended to the end of July. We'll be done.
And the 1.9 is gonna get you through,
Perhaps.
perhaps. Okay.
It's well on its way.
So I have a question. I know it's not connected to accessibility upgrades, but while we're talking about upgrades. I want to ask about the Wi-Fi situation. Sabrina.
Rita is our AHS project manager, so she knows all about it, and that is not our project to begin with, just so you know. Then everything else, Sabrina, is more personal.
Well,
That was what I was gonna say.
Oh, there you go.
the type of question that would probably get into your world. Is there any direct cable wire in, copper wire, anything to provide internet services? I know it's old technology, but I know we hear it's really hard to get Wi-Fi
Hmm.
in our correctional facilities because they're concrete buildings. And we do have some hot spots that we know where we could do it, but in other spots, is there any way you could do any wiring?
So most of the time, we end up running wiring in conduit, surface mounted conduit.
Right now for internet access?
For any additional power, data, anything, because we really don't have the access to the inside of the walls just due to construction.
We're doing that right now so that folks that. Well,
I am unaware of the status of internet. We do that for any other projects that need to run wiring of any sort.
okay, so is there any opportunity? We're depending on the Wi-Fi system like what we have at home, which is really the concrete walls prevent that signaling. Is there any opportunity to wire certain spots within the facility so that folks can have access?
So
The answer is yes. However, I mean, because this is right now, and I'm afraid of the names of the firms, but this is the second time that has been provided for the incarcerated individuals. They have provided more Wi-Fi in the living units because of the concrete.
And how have they done that? Through wiring?
through a service amount of conduit, yes.
Right. So you have, your Wi-Fi node that's, everybody gets to see in the ceiling, and that living unit may need two. So hard copper wire is run inside of a conduit to that, and that would provide the Wi-Fi.
Is that also available in other parts of the facilities, like at booking or not in the living units necessarily, but maybe in a secure room where there's could be a lawyer-client?
You know?
Yeah, so the internet that Joe is speaking of is for the tablet. power.
Only for the
Yes,
tablets.
it's just their tablets. And so there's other networks which DOC was trying to combine to make this process easier last year. There was discussion about that. There's also there's the community college. There's, of course, staff internet and any other providers. You'll have to talk to DOC about where tablets are allowed and where internet for those tablets is provided.
Just kind of thinking of our testimony the other day and seeing if there's a way that we could get some internet access or access to download some apps that might help in terms of language interpretation for folks. Seems to be a stumbling block. Just thinking outside the box, if there's anything that could be done. Putting thoughts on the table for folks.
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts.
Well, I'm thinking for access for,
Right, yeah. Yeah, even if it's. I don't know the intersection here between the wiring and the security policy around bringing in outside apps. Or just even the capacity for folks who are providing services to detainees in this case, to create to maybe set up their own hotspot or setting up their language services. If that becomes, I'm still thinking about this is a whole can of worms for you, Joe, but I'm still thinking about, and you haven't been prepared for this. I'm still thinking about temporary, like a FEMA trailer or something that we could put on site that would have the capacity for 5 or 6 meeting rooms that would have Wi-Fi access or internet access that would allow especially ACLU and BAP to have a place where they can use their language services to interact with detainees for whom English is not their first language. So that's a much bigger, again, the chair did open this can of worms.
I did.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
blame
It
me.
was fun going fishing with her.
yeah.
But do we ever catch anything?
Yeah, so there's a lot here about space creation and then, the internet capacity within that space. If we're gonna try and find solutions to some of the problems we heard about.
And it's really 2 facilities. It's the women's facility in St. Albans.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, we heard some really disturbing testimony the other day about legal representation for folks who are being held through the ICE program in our facilities, and legal representation and get into the building sometimes, but there is just no access for them to download interpretive apps. There's no space for them to even, for the lawyers to even meet with the clients. I understand the space restrictions, but I'm just, and this is a conversation more with DOC on that part, but BGS is also involved. I mean, some committee members have mentioned, could we put up like FEMA trailers?
Mhm.
At those two facilities? PGS would be involved with that. I don't know what the cost would be. I don't know what the security issues would be. I'm assuming there'd be some security issues on DOC's part. I don't
And probably
think,
staffing.
and staffing, and I don't think it's as easy at BGS's part of just plunking a temporary trailer there.
There would be more than that. But again, this would have to start with corrections. And, we can work with them as to, if you look at how big that trailer was, where it could go, if it could go, security, anchoring it and the likes of that, we would be a definite part of. Beyond that, which really have to come from corrections.
And the cost. It's not gonna be what we may think may be the cost.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 or 3 times the cost.
Mhm.
Because it does have to be secure. Right,
I'm trying to think through this with you guys. Yeah, so if there's a trailer that can fit somewhere on the grounds, and if you're using it for the purpose you describe, I assume that anybody coming in, including legal counsel, still has to check all their devices, right? So
Yeah.
what devices are you gonna be running any apps through anyway?
well, that is also any visitor that goes into a correctional facility, you can't go in with your cell phone.
Yeah,
And I don't know if that's part of the issue. I just don't know. I don't know if you could do the lawyer-client, though you need privacy, but if you could do it more in a public arena. I don't know. I mean, it's just so disturbing to hear that we have folks who are being held and being denied their due process due to whatever. The legal counsel isn't allowed through the door to begin with, or there isn't proper language interpretation being made available, and there might be some electronic way to do that. I'm sorry to say, this is setting up the state for a lawsuit. That's what's gonna happen here. And then it's gonna be really expensive on the state end to take care of this. And we're just kind of thinking out of the box, trying to figure something out here. Gina?
I'm just curious, I'm not sure where you guys are at with conduit or ductwork in different places, but would it make sense to look into this enough that if you're running new ductwork, how expensive could it be to run the conduit for the internet at the same time?
2 different trades, 2 different locations. And corrections already has done tablets twice now, 2 different companies.
Okay,
The in between the first and the second company thought was they were going to reuse that conduit cabling and the likes of that. It didn't work out for them. And now there it is. So that's one of those things too, that, depends on the company, what their requirements are versus the past company or what future needs are.
So it's something more than a Cat5 fire?
You're running in conduit and where's it coming from and going to? So, these are solid structures. So it's not that easy just to run through down a hallway and poke out because,
well, that's kind of like, does it have to be in conduit?
yes.
It has to be, okay, you couldn't just.
We
like-
require it to be not only the conduit, also you don't have your typical screw
Right,
fittings,
yeah,
like, because they can be taken apart and having a 4-foot, 8-foot stick of conduit is not good
yeah,
in the wrong hands.
For a lot of reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
and I just figure if they're disturbing the building to run the ductwork, with, putting the conduit in now would make a lot of
The
sense.
AC part, most of the ductwork's already in place.
Okay, cool, that's what I wanted to know.
Yes.
I brought it up because it's something that's gonna be percolating this whole session and place to deal with some of this is the capital bill. And we just don't know what to do. Connor?
Just out of curiosity, Joe, do we have like trailers and storage that look anything like the Middlesex one? No, okay.
Or do we want to repurpose those when they're done?
You're right.
What is the cost on one of
Right,
those?
first
If you were to buy one?
Yeah.
What was the question, Troy?
Just cost, if we were gonna acquire new ones, but. Again, then you're saddled with.
Is that, I don't want to take up BGS's work time, but is there a way that you could quickly give us a ballpark figure in terms of we put a trailer at South Burlington facility and the one up in St. Albans? There's more space in St. Albans. I mean, we haven't even talked to DOC about
Right.
this.
I mean, that would be the place to start, I think, because I don't know the size of the trailer. So I need to know that if it's gonna be used year round, what security requirements there are. You know, do we need, if it's with counsel and the incarcerated individual, can they be together alone? Or do we need another area for supervision from a correctional officer in that? It's also isolated but secure. So they'll all, do start with them to develop something and then we could come up with an estimate. But until I know what I'm looking at to provide an estimate, I can't do it.
Well, keep this in the back of your mind. Troy?
I want to go back to accessibility. Um,
No, I don't know why, when you just did.
a number of us were actually at CRCF in the midst of the accessibility upgrade, so we kind of saw it happening as we were there. We heard it happening, and we saw the folks living in the gym while the shuffle was happening. Can we anticipate something similar for the next facility? And if so, how long? Or is there more flexibility in keeping folks in beds rather than on a gym floor?
I don't have a good answer for you. The next facility is Newport. The outside work is being done. A lot of the inside work, because some of it was very simple. It was, you know, the toilet paper dispenser holder was just off a half inch. And so it's relocating that. Some sinks that are also off by a couple inches. So it doesn't have an impact like with shit. And then the areas that they were having to work in are slightly different because of the age of that facility use.
So do you think it'll be less disruptive?
Yes.
Thank you.
There's more space in those facilities than Chittenden, so you can move people around. And it's a male facility, so if you have to, you can move some of those folks to another facility in the state. Where in the women's facility, you don't have, you got to work within that confine of that building. Okay, so we're not sure if the 1.9 that's left over will get us through what's remaining, and there was no money that we put in FY 27. Okay,
Next up, we have the St. Johnsbury Northeast Correctional and the work camp door control system. So this is the third facility in line of having door control being replaced, updated. Newport was first, then we went to Springfield, and now we're at St. Johnsbury. So this door control system is more than just operating the door. It is also connected to a computer system that the correctional officers now have a touch screen, so they have multiple buttons to push on or off. It also integrates with the camera system. So all the cameras are going to be new at this facility. So that when you push a button, if you're at a door, the camera actually pivots to or looks at the door. And if it's a secure door, you need the camera on both sides.
You what?
You need a camera on both sides of the door.
Okay.
So when you push the button, the camera actually goes to it. The system brings it up on the screen because it's been activated. And then the correctional officer can, let the individual through or not. But it's also tied to the fence perimeter intrusion system. So when that goes off, it also comes back to and points it out onto that screen. And this would be a master control. In the living units, they also have a computer screen a touch screen that they have, and that's to operate all the individual doors. It also ties into being able to turn the lights off and on, and also shut the water off to prevent flooding. So all that is also doors and frames. For the new system, it leeway, the variance that it had between when that door is supposed to be locked and secure is a lot less than what the older system had. So we're finding out that over the years, the doors have been warped or rusted at the bottoms of the frames have, and those doors. Once St. John's Ferry is completed, our next stop, I believe, is Rutland.
I've changed.
Did you have to replace a lot of the doors or just?
I'm not sure if this facility, we had 100 doors or so in Newport to replace in Springfield.
100?
Well, you're also talking the doors to, is it doors that are in the public areas or is it doors also in the living units?
Living units, special cell.
Individual cells?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you take a book and you put it between the crack and slam the door, it'll warp it. And then the magnets don't align.
That's what happens.
Yes. Oh, yes.
They don't want
The
to,
daily incident.
yeah, they don't want to be locked in.
Yeah.
They want a way out of the
I
cell.
just didn't know what percentage of doors you had to replace.
So you're working now in St. J. You finished Newport and Springfield. You're working in St. J. You got 4.1 million left. That 4.1 million will get you through everything in St. J and the work camp? Maybe?
Or perhaps, again,
Okay, that's another part.
so we do have a construction manager on board, and as soon as we finish the design is complete, we're gonna go out to bid and then we'll be starting the work.
Because we did put in 2.6 million in FY 27.
So a lot of times when you are, once the system's in, that's when you find out. You know, we do our best through design to clarify which doors or frames have to be adjusted, removed, and replaced. Once the system's in, though, you actually find out that there are more doors that are out of alignment.
So the work camp doesn't have that many doors. Because
That's true.
it's more of an open barrack style. Do you know how many folks are in that facility,
I do.
that building? So if you had to move some of the individuals from the regional facility, could you put them there in the work camp?
If there was space, perhaps, in the fact that it's a DOC call and that can that incarcerated individual go into that type of client? That's all. So what they would have done in the past is rotate everybody, you know, any of the good people could go in that, then go. And then so everybody who needs to be locked in a facility in a single cell would stay on or go to a different facility.
And then Rutland is next. Does that complete them all? Have you done St.
And
John?
we will go to Northwest
St. Albans?
or Chittenden, because Chittenden is also failing. I'd rather do Northwest first since, you know, we're looking to replace Chittenden.
Just thinking where we were 10 years ago. If we had done that, a lot of these issues would have gone away.
If you had done what?
Oh, the big plan back then was to really deal with Northwest, have that as one of our big central facilities, have the women's facility on that property. And we would have closed probably Rutland or St. J. And we would have brought our out-of-state folks back. That was the big plan back in 2016. Like that. When who was Con Hogan? It's not, well, what's that?
Really 16.
It was- Remember the big plan,
Yes,
Southwest? If we'd done that, a lot of these issues wouldn't be here. Oh, well, we keep going.
We're here.
next up, St. Albans, we have the Northwest State Correctional Facility replacement. And last time we discussed this, I told you we got out to bid. We had a low bid and a high bid, not sure who was correct. And we came back and asked for additional funds. That was a good thing because the low bidder did bid again. The high bidder, actually the bidder was different. And that roof project will start in the spring. As soon as weather allows.
And hopefully this money will carry it through to completion. We hope,
There's always hope.
perhaps.
Maybe perhaps within the new word for me.
Yeah, perhaps, we'll see. 'Cause we haven't put anything in 27. While we're up in Northwest. Where are we with the reconfiguration of the booking area and all of that? Is that being part of this? Because the roof replacement, when we talked about it, might impact all of the changing around of the booking area.
That is correct, Madam Chair, and I'll set you over to Sabrina for that because that's her project.
We have just completed conceptual design on that.
And is the price coming in higher than what we anticipated?
Perhaps.
Perhaps. We'll see next week.
I'm gonna start using that. Fix taxes, Brad.
Becoming a habit.
Right here, Brad.
Yeah,
We started that years ago. And
So
there's,
design is underway.
Conceptual design has just been completed.
perhaps.
So there are 3 phases of design after that.
We haven't done that workshop, I don't think, with this group. Have we?
Yeah, we did it last year.
Didn't we?
Because Northwest right now, of all of our facilities, not, should not, but of all of our facilities, is really seeing the most use in our booking area, is my hunch. Because we're taking in folks from the northern part of the county and up along, as you go east, along the Canadian border down, Franklin, even Essex, Orleans possibly. They're going there, and all of Chittenden County, part of Washington County, Addison County. And then we have the federal marshals. That's where most of our federal marshal beds are for males at St. Albans. That's been tradition for a long time. And now we've got the pressure of ICE detainees. So this facility, that booking area is heavily, heavily, heavily used. When that booking area originally was there, the South Burlington facility was the main facility. So all of the detainees and all of the folks funneling into the Chittenden facility, males, they were going to the South Burlington facility. They weren't going to St. Albans. But when the South Burlington facility got changed into the women's facility, those men are now going up to St. Albans. So it's putting a lot of pressure on this facility and that booking area. To keep that in mind. And we started the work on renovating that area 3 years ago, I think, 4 years ago.
Very good.
We were on Zoom. We started it. Oh, how time goes by. Okay, anything
That's section 3.
else? I'm just looking. And this is perhaps because it's 500,027 for the Newport sprinkler system, but there's nothing.
I haven't
26,
started that yet.
haven't started. Okay. Any other questions while we're in the DOC world and construction? Already through one curveball. Sean?
Yeah, I kind of asked, what are you using as a material? It's asphalt shingle
Copper.
and copper.
Okay.
Sorry, so I couldn't pass that one up.
Couldn't miss that.
I can't help this, John. The joke is wrapping the Bennington Monument in copper. coming from Sean.
Good.
Been sticking my pennies.
Inside baseball.
So the asphalt shingle, what, 20 years, right? Again.
With the architectural style, they've been 30 years. The flat roofs will be membrane, the fixed roofs are still asphalt.
John actually likes the guy.
You're never gonna live that one down.
No.
No, we still love you. Okay, as we're going down to Bennington, now let's look at the vet zone. And we did have a great tour of the vet zone there in September, and Mary did a terrific job putting us all together. And it was a great reunion of the committee as well.
Sabrina will be providing information on these too.
So we have the American Way reconstruction. I'm assuming you have a little history lesson since you visited this.
Okay, yeah, we saw that ramp going up into the laundry room, it was awful.
So we've been working on this project for quite a few years. We have stopped at the design development phase in December of 2024, and we've been waiting on funding. This is a federal matching construction grant, and we are currently working through the grant application process with the
Say that again, the last part again.
We are currently working through the grant application process with the VA.
How long will that take, do you think?
I have no idea.
Perhaps.
First time.
Historically,
It takes,
how
Well,
much money are you gonna get?
historically, how long does it take? But is there new dynamics now in the federal piece that's gonna extend this, or do you not know?
Melissa Jackson will invest it. Everyone answer that.
So the design development phase was done. Is that design gonna change at all, do you think?
I don't anticipate it though.
But you're not far along in design documents, so.
So the construction, so the design is complete. The next phase is construction documents, which is just creating the drawing that tell the contractor how to build the building. So there's no more design, the design work is pretty much. And the VA is that sounds very happy with the design, so I don't anticipate major changes.
You can't go forward to construction documents until you know what the federal match is gonna be.
Lack of funding may force us to redesign, so that's why we stopped at design.
Lack of funding being on the federal level.
Yeah, if we don't get funding, I don't know how it works, like I said, it's my first time. So that's why we stop at that phase, in case budget does force us to redesign.
Where are you hovering with the whole thing right now, do you know?
And when did you start working with the application for the federal dollars?
So we did submit application last year, did not receive funding, so we are resubmitting application this year.
This fiscal year or calendar year?
It's a question for me.
Melissa
Yeah,
Jackson. So it's already been resubmitted.
It has not been resubmitted yet.
Okay.
In town halls next week. With the VA,
With the VA.
yes.
You know why it was denied?
There is a lot of requests for funding into that.
So nothing we did wrong or, yeah, they didn't need something that they didn't have.
Volume.
Yeah.
Limited source.
Okay.
What's the backup plan when, if you don't get the money? For those beds down there, those 30 beds that were empty because they have no one in them.
Melissa Jackson will have to answer that.
We're gonna have to get Melissa Jackson in here.
Mhm. Well, they also have a day up here,
Okay,
that's so if we could coordinate. Mary, maybe you could help on that when they come up. Usually they come up sometime in February, January, February. If you could coordinate when they're coming up for that, and then we can schedule Melissa in while they're here, because it's better to have them in person. then on Zoom. And if you're already up here, let's see if we can schedule them. Because they have their day up, the Vets Home is their day up here. Okay. Anything else on this one? Section? And I know the Vets Home has just a lot of money moving around. Look, some of it is working with the Vets Home more so than you as well. Anything else on this particular piece? Okay, laundry, this is where we spend a lot of time. Dryers, washing machines. Whoever thought we'd get into sizes of washers and dryers.
Stressful.
So this is reconstruction of the laundry facilities. The laundry facility is in an 1800s building with boilers low, very difficult to control heat, humidity. There was a structural assessment completed on that building in 2024 that the dean did unsound and recommended that we replace the laundry facility. The laundry facility is about 2,000 square feet, serves 140 beds currently. And the request for proposals for AE services will be hopefully advertised by the end of the month.
And we also put in language that we can move money around between projects, just in case we don't know what this is gonna come back at. They refine their numbers over and over and the size of the washers and the whole 9 yards. Okay, so we can get an update from Alyssa when they're here. Anything else?
R22 air handler replacement complete?
That's not, Regis is not involved with that. No one's the home itself working that. So it can provide.
Thanks.
Where did you see that?
Line 51. I do just have one
Yep.
question. So with the veterans building. What do you know about? I know they're saying that the walls in here are structurally, you can't really redo it
In where, that's all.
in the vet's home. Is there a problem with the ground as well because of the leaking septic and all that?
I've not seen a report,
Yeah,
so.
so the A wing is slab on grade and there's cast iron pipes below that are leaking. And so the only way to replace those is to demo that slab. That wing also includes structural barrier walls because the plan was to build a second story above it. And the space of the rooms does not meet current VA standards. And so we can't move all of those walls to meet that standard because they're buried. So it's pretty much a complete demo and rebuild.
But we haven't really moved along with any of that. An A wing.
No, the design is a brand new edition.
Is
Courthouses.
We're gonna have to has to run off to another meeting, so.
It's all right. Now you launch your backup.
I got back up. There's people on the bench for me still. Oh, and Emily.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see Emily.
I mean, it's just an empty commissioner.
Actually, she snuck in and taking it all in.
She used to be in Tate's. Way back,
Over there?
yeah,
Oh, yeah, sorry, we talked last year.
yeah. In our little room.
So
Okay,
Last up, section 14, we have the White River Junction courthouse. That project's been ongoing for a number of years. We had started design. It was shelved for a little bit, and we got into it back in FY '23. 24, completed the design. They had to bid. They are almost complete. February 2nd, Groundhog Day, judiciary will be open in the White River Courthouse for operating. They'll be moving the last weekend.
Is that Troy?
We
We got
have it
1.3
there,
million
the
left
job
over.
is not done yet. There's still change orders and others things to deal with.
So that'll all go.
We'll know by April, May, maybe, perhaps. Perhaps.
No, I think by April, May, I'd have a good idea.
Well, that's gonna be a relief for that. And then, the building that we leased across the road, when we did the construction of the courthouse renovations, the staff of the courthouse, some of the staff moved over there.
It's attorney.
And they're now, the state's attorney
Overhead
in there.
in there, now, yes,
That was
Seen that leak.
the state's attorney.
Yeah.
So they were
They're gonna
another
stay.
lease, that lease was coming to an end because they were looking to, the landlord was looking to redo the whole block. And so they took that space.
So there's other projects within the judiciary here, that I'm just curious. There was a backup power system in the Woodstock courthouse.
All judiciary projects for county courts.
So you don't get involved in the county,
We do not.
this, just in the ones that is.
Yes.
So, so there's 3 county courthouses. There's a Woodstock. There's the one in Lamoille County, though we built that.
That is correct. We built half, a new addition put on the existing county courthouse. And it's operated, our MOU that we have for the county court is they take care of all the maintenance and everything else and the upkeep. And we pay into them like we've done in other facilities.
And then the Essex County Courthouse, that's its own world up there. And that's a conversation with the judiciary,
Yes.
2.6 million. James?
It's gonna be the easiest answer, I'm sure. And as soon as you start saying it, I'm like, what does fit for court staff and lease space mean lastly?
Fit up.
Oh, fit up.
It's fit up. Yeah. Oh, so no, sorry, I didn't come down the last bit. That would be fit, that should have been fit up, so it's typed up.
What do you mean by that? Just to elaborate a little.
What is fit up?
In the court space that we had, that we were using, we have to, like, the partitions or something that we built, we would have to demobilize all that stuff.
Yes, of the office space. It wasn't the courthouse. It was this administrative staff. The actual court function was moved from when the construction was going on in the White River Court, it was moved up to Woodstock. All the court proceedings were moved up to
In
Woodstock.
Woodstock facility courthouse, we actually built a secure room that has, and had created a secure restroom. All that has to be undone. That's, once they all move in, we'll start that work.
Did that come out of the balance of the one?
Yes, it will.
There you go, Troy. Kiss it goodbye.
I'm not using $1 million to redo a bathroom. More than that.
It's happened before. You say more than that?
Much more.
That's gonna be.
No, there's more work,
Oh.
not the cost. God, that balance is for finishing up White River and undoing the work in two other buildings.
Another dumb question. So if they're moving in next month,
Moving in this month, end of the month, they'll be moved in, they start court in the courthouse on February
so you're
2nd.
just working through the final like punch list type thing, or is it all?
Yeah. Yes.
Anything else? Anything else for Joe while he's here? We'll be seeing a lot of you.
Perhaps.
You're not leaving us to work.
No intentions of leaving. It's so much
Everybody
fun.
else is.
I know that. I left, I should have left too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Cole. Feel better.
It's not a cold, it's, I think, yes.
It's the blade.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Have a nice day.
You were just perfect.
Moving into the regional correctional
Yeah.
facility program
Yeah, I get it.
update impacts.
Yeah.
With our friend Charlie.
Yeah.
Have a nice day, John. Yes. You guys?
That sounds like nothing. We'll talk to you about this.
You're welcome, Mayor. And Brian will just move over a little bit. He usually does, it's in the corner.
Sorry about that.
Nice. I get it.
Murad.
You guys get
Well, he's gonna be around though. You can talk to him on Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't have to be in person.
So what do we want to talk to you about? We're technically about. This is face,
Telecommunication.
is that what we're talking about?
There's a lot of little committees going. I said telecom.
Kevin, Mary, what are we supposed to be talking to DOC about?
Fine,
Not in it.
fine.
Fine. So it's about fine
Victim notification.
and how they're interpreting Jennifer Coleman's take on it.
Yeah.
On this whole the one we saw the other day that she presented that they would probably want to chat with them.
Yeah.
And Haley said, when I talked to her about it, she was like, yeah, we have a download for you all too, so.
Yeah, that should be.
But you can do Zoom. We're just doing it's not that he has to be in the building.
The next if I may.
If he has somewhere interesting. I've got to find. What kitchen area on Tuesday. More important things. Okay. Let me get the agenda. Where's Charlie? There she is. You're behind. So there's a few folks who wanted to come in and Charlie with the Vermont Network. Really wanted to bring us up to speed with what's happening with programmatic issues within the Chittenden facility because the numbers are just up around 170. Folks, half of those folks basically have
Thank you.
are detainees. And how that's really impacting the programs. So Charlie, do you come up? Do you want to bring? You. There is a document that's been submitted on our website.
I will do my best to smoothly screen share this morning. Terrific. Well, thank you all so much for the opportunity to speak with the committee today about our work at Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility and programming needs for folks there, including incarcerated survivors. My name is Charlie Kinsterman. I'm the policy director at the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. I'm also joined here by my colleague Kylan. Can you speak up for the record?
Hi, I'm Kylan Bayu. I'm the director of the Divas program at CRCF, and I recognize so many of you from program.
Of the what program?
The Divas program.
Divas.
Yes.
We'll talk all about it in just a moment.
That's in here, but thank you.
So for today, we're hoping to briefly review the Vermont Network Divas program, which offers direct services to incarcerated survivors at CRCF, how that work informs our perspective on the women's facility stakeholder group, some thoughts we have on reentry needs of detainees at CRCF, And the proposal brought by some members of the stakeholder group, ourselves, as well as ACLU Vermont, around how to meet some of those needs with increased capacity for reentry services at CRCF. And we're happy to take any questions during our testimony or afterwards. So sometimes we get this question, why does the Vermont Network run a direct services program at CRCF? And I think the pie chart on this slide really sums it up, that the vast majority of incarcerated women have histories of interpersonal trauma that predate their incarceration. In a 2024 survey of folks at CRCF, 97% reported experiencing or witnessing domestic violence. In that survey also showed the vast majority also reported experiencing or witnessing sexual violence as a minor. That same survey also showed how these experiences can directly or indirectly contribute to their incarceration. So 62% of people at CRCF reported experiences of forced criminalization. So that looks like being pressured or forced to engage in illegal or sexual activities in exchange for money, using substances, or to meet their basic needs. And so that's why for over 20 years, the Vermont Network has operated a statewide direct services program, DIVAS, for incarcerated survivors of domestic violence, sexual violence, and trafficking out of CRCF. And I'll hand it over to my colleague, Kylan, who's going to speak a bit about the nitty-gritty details day-to-day of the DIVAS program.
Hi, once again, my name is Kylan. I'm the director of the DIVAS program. If you've been to CRCF for a tour, you've probably seen our office in the building. The DIVAS program, DIVAS stands for Discussing Intimate Violence and Accessing Support. We're a project of the Vermont Network. We're comprised of 3 advocates who are in the facility 5 days a week and are there to provide services for people who have experienced domestic violence, sexual violence, human trafficking, post-criminality. Those are really big umbrella terms, and we get into a lot of other kinds of relationship, health, understanding instances of trauma, safety planning, all kinds of things. So it's myself, I'm there full-time, and I have 2 other almost full-time advocates in there with me.
So can you say what DIVAS stands for again?
Yes, it stands for Discussing Intimate Violence and Accessing Support, which is a little bit of a mouthful, so DIVAS is usually easier.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering. Testimony, a joint hearing last week on human and sex trafficking. For folks, for the women who are incarcerated, is there evidence of them being victims of the sex trafficking? Do you know?
Absolutely. In terms of the survey that the pie chart that Charlie just brought up 2 slides ago about the forced criminality, the question that we asked in the survey was more specifically like, have you ever been forced, coerced, or lied to into committing sex or labor acts in exchange for basic needs, housing, safety? So asking around the statute of force, fraud, or coercion. From a survey result, I can't determine if those meet the threshold for human trafficking. Those things can exist within an intimate partner relationship as well, but we do work with a large number of survivors of human trafficking every year.
So I'm just wondering, because it's such a vulnerable population, and I know that DOC has to approve who the incarcerated person can have access to on the outside, who they can talk with on the phone, who they can possibly connect with through their iPad, mail that comes in. Do you know if DOC knows that's maybe someone that wants to continue contact with a person, maybe the perpetrator?
I think from my experience working there, the Intel team that does monitor those messages coming in and out, mail coming in and out, phone calls, and probably who's bailing out, if there's who's consistently bailing out on bail. We've gotten referrals before from the Intel team or other DOC staff members saying, we think this person is maybe a risk of human trafficking. We think they might be victimized in some way. either trafficking or maybe someone that they think is an intimate partner, we receive those referrals from DOC staff. At that point, we reach out to the individual and say someone made a referral on your behalf, and from there, all of our services are accessible to them.
How are the women reacting to that if they get the information from you that you had that referral? How do they react? Are they relieved, or is it like, oh my God, I do need contact with this person?
Sometimes, and I think there's a mix of reactions. Generally, people don't like the feeling of intrusion of privacy of like people reading their messages and hearing their phone calls, even though that's a structural part of the incarceration. But most people are grateful that the staff member was concerned enough to make a referral to our program.
How's Divas funded? Is it just a hodgepodge of grants through the network there? Is it, do you feel like it's stable funding going forward?
Right now, I think we're like 98% funded by the Department of Corrections. We have one other small
Okay,
grant.
so it's under the corrections line?
Yes, yeah.
And how long has it been under the corrections? How long has DIVA existed and how long has it been funded through DOC budget?
How long it's been funded under DOC entirely, I'm not positive. Since, I know at least since 2014 when they moved, 2011, when they moved to Chittenden Regional, that's when it became its own standalone program with an RFP with the Department of Corrections. Before that, it was sort of remote work. Advocates would go in if there was an instance of any kind of sexual misconduct pre-investigation. But I'm not sure how it was funded prior to CRCF.
So is it an RFP that DOC puts out?
Yes.
For this? And then the network bids on that, puts in the RFP?
Yes.
So there could be other entities out there when DOC goes out with the RFP to put in their proposal as well. And how long is your contract with DOC?
Standard is 2 years. We've received some renewals in the last couple of years.
The renewals 2 years as well, or 1 year?
1 year usually.
So where are you now in that cycle?
We were just renewed for another year, so we are funded the end of June of 2027.
So you're funded through FY27.
Yes.
And what is the amount DOC that you get funded for?
I'm not sure the exact number. I believe.
I'm happy to follow up with that
Yeah.
information after.
Yeah, we're just curious because we're looking at DOC's budget.
Mhm.
And this is, it wouldn't show up in their $200 million budget. $200 million lump sum, portion of that is going towards your contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Terrific questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
I should know what it is, and as soon as you say it, I will. Priya.
Child prison rape, go ahead.
The Prison Rape Elimination Act.
Okay.
Yeah. Any sort of misconduct that happens between two incarcerated individuals or a staff member and an incarcerated person, or potentially between two staff members. We have an MOU with the department, as well as HopeWorks, which is the local sexual violence advocacy organization, that we are all looped in to make sure there's an advocate available whenever a report is made.
Thank you.
So just a little bit about the Divas program. I will keep it brief and I'm happy to answer any other questions that come up. The sort of main focus of our program is providing advocacy, emotional support, and education to incarcerated survivors of violence. On a daily basis, that looks like providing this one-on-one emotional support and groups and education. Those are their two biggest building blocks of our program. We offer a number of programs around healing trauma, grief and loss. We just started an LGBTQ resiliency group. We do safety planning and reentry groups, as well as just some more community building, arts-based healing, anything like that. And then as people are getting ready to leave the correctional facility, both detained or sentenced populations, we do everything we can to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful wherever they're returning to after CRCF. If that's connecting them with their local DV and SV organization, or making other kinds of referrals. I'm also available a few days a week in the community when I'm not at the correctional facility to provide ongoing support and referrals, wraparound support for anyone exiting the correctional facility. We work with all the other contractors, DOC caseworkers, and administration. And we also provide training for corrections staff around trauma-informed care, best practices for working with incarcerated survivors of violence, as well as self-care for correction staff experiencing vicarious trauma working in a correctional facility. And I already touched on Priya that we are available for all of those investigations.
So with the increased population coming in with detainees, what are you seeing in terms of these programs here that you're really seeing more pressure being applied, or is it pretty standard or equal?
We've seen a lot of increase. I actually just completed our FY25, our FY26 semi-annual report. So everything from July to December of this past year saw a 69% increase in the one-on-one sessions that we're having with folks. There was a 79% increase in group participation and 66% increase in just the number of people that we served overall. From, I believe it went re-entry services specifically increased 176% from FY25 to 26. Sorry.
So the reentry, are you just working with those who have been sentenced, or are you also working with any detainees? On the
Detainees. We work with anyone who's there.
anyone. So is it the detainee population that's putting the pressure on the increases here?
Yes. A group of contractors at CRCF received some funds from JRI last year to
JRI's joint. Justice
Yes.
Restorative, JR2. Justice Reinvestment.
Yeah, and that funding was for us to be able to assist people who are reentering the community in accessing housing support, transportation needs, utility assistance. We have helped people get cell phones for when they're leaving. And a lot of our time in the last 6 months has been spent assisting people in getting ready to leave, more detained than sentenced. But across the board, we're seeing increases.
So for those folks who are detained and that you're working, particularly on the reentry piece, how long have they been there detained? Do you know? Is it a year? Is it 6 months? It's not a week, I would assume. It's a little, could it be?
We work with people anywhere from as soon as they're as soon as they've been booked into general population, they can start accessing our program. So we work with people who have been there from anywhere from 24 hours to upwards of a year detained.
And what are you seeing as some of the stumbling blocks on the reentry piece for them?
For reentry support, it's I think we see mostly that there isn't a very clear process in place about who can assist with reentry support for detained populations. It's not something that DOC caseworkers can assist with. Contractors can't make referrals to rehab. A lot of times their lawyer or whoever is representing them is the person that needs to make the contact for that kind of pre-trial release, which puts a lot of strain on the lawyer to do that, and confusion, I think, for people who especially have not been incarcerated before of how that process is going to work, how to get in touch with a lawyer, making three-way calls to rehab with their lawyer to try and get in is really challenging.
And how many of those detainees that you've worked with are coming back into the system? Do you see a lot of that happening or not?
Yeah, we do see a lot of people return. I can't say exact what percentage, but there are people that I've been working in the correctional facility for over 8 years, and there are people that I work with who I've known for all 8 years who have come in and out a number of times.
So is it they finally got to court and were finally sentenced? Because detainees, for the most part, haven't been sentenced. So is it they finally got in to court and finally had their sentence? Or is it new crimes that were committed?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't say it's new crimes. I would say it's either that or potentially a violation of conditions of release.
And I think, we're still also trying to wrap our heads around, what is driving the very sharp increase of detainees, especially detainees in our women's correctional facility. I know there were some conversations at Joint Justice in the off session around trying to get more data from the courts, from DOC to really understand this problem. And that's something that we're looking forward to seeing as well. I also received a friendly note that the Divas annual budget is $206,000 a year.
And that's totally pretty through DOC,
That's my understanding, yes. Yeah,
206,000.
206.
The one-on-one emotional support, the sort of who's providing, is that volunteers, is that other incarcerated people, is that people like professional counselors, that who's?
That's me and the two other advocates who work in the correctional facility. Yeah.
Okay.
We're there 5 days a week in some layered capacity. Sometimes it's one advocate in the building. Other times there's two. Very rarely there's three of us because it gets a little crowded in there. Having
Right.
two advocates, but
Yeah.
yeah, we're there Monday to Friday.
You have that little office that's like really colorful and stuff.
Yes, yes.
I think you were there the day we were there.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So what type of expenses would you have aside from the salaries there within that $206,000? It's not a lot of money for 3 salaries, almost full time.
The majority of it is our salaries. We have a very small budget for office supplies. One thing that we provide to incarcerated folks, both as like an emotional support skill and a part of our groups is like composition notebooks and pens. We do a lot of like expressive writing and encourage journaling for mindfulness and grounding. So we have a very small budget for that, some office supplies, and a minute amount for a data management system that we use.
All right.
Yeah.
Tight budget.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned earlier, like cell phones and stuff for people reentering.
Mhm.
So where does that money come from?
That money had been coming from the Justice Reinvestment Fund, which is still open with very little left in it. I think we're trying to figure out how to use the last.
Do you buy new phones? Is that how you do it?
Yes, yeah,
I have a thought. Talk to me afterwards.
so that would be great. That is,
Copper wires.
No. It's a project down in Springfield,
oh, awesome, awesome.
not at the facility, so. within
Okay.
PNP.
Good to know.
I'll talk to you about.
And I think after that, I'm passing it back to you.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Great questions. So these are the perspectives that we bring to our advocacy work for justice-involved women. And we continue to remain deeply involved in those conversations, including those around replacing CRCF. Some of those conversations have happened within the women's facility stakeholder group, which I'm sure this committee is very familiar with.
Wrote the letter.
The committee wrote the letter. And, so the goal that, the committee had with this letter of intent, the goal that we bring to our participation is developing a replacement facility that promotes successful rehabilitation and reentry of justice-involved women. That includes a physical space, but more importantly, it includes programming to make sure that justice-involved women are supported.
So go back to that slide, because I want to bring part of the committee up to speed, because half the committee was here back in when we did this in 23. The other half of the committee is new. We've been working on replacing the women's facility for a long time. And there was a stakeholders group that was working with DOC to really look at program needs that need to be in the new building, in the new facility, and really working with DOC in terms of when DOC works with BGS, DOC presents to BGS what type of programming will be in a facility. And then DOC can then design the building accordingly. So the stakeholder group is really a group of a variety of interested parties that are working informally, sort of, with DOC in terms of formulating what programs DOC will be offering within the new facility. So that's the genesis of the stakeholder group. We really wanted to formalize that more because it was just kind of hanging out there.
Absolutely. And, it is within the context of that stakeholder group that we've been talking about the deteriorating conditions at CRCF and the significant number of people incarcerated there, particularly the number of state detainees, which now regularly comprise over half of those at CRCF. You know, as Kylan noted, these are folks that can be in CRCF from anywhere from days to years. And I'm sure that you've also seen this chart before from the Department of Corrections that speaks to the significant rise of both sentenced and detained populations, but you can see a 103% increase in detainees over the last 4 years. So when we were looking at this issue in the fall, there was a high point in mid-September where there were 183 people incarcerated at CRCF, including 93 state detainees. The American Correctional Association optimal conditions that they have for CRCF with an appropriate capacity buffer puts the number that should be optimally accommodated at CRCF at 88 people. And so that's a really massive disparity that has stressed the conditions at CRCF. I know you were hearing from Building and General Services earlier. You know, there is needed construction at CRCF to ensure the building's ADA compliant. Between that and the high census numbers, incarcerated people are sleeping in common spaces, in the gym. The yard is being used to stage construction, and so outside time has been restricted since the fall. And these are crisis conditions and underscore the critical need for a new facility. And what we're really looking for is a clear plan for how this project will move forward at a pace that reflects that crisis. As Chair Emmons said, we've been having this conversation for many years now, and do fear that we will be giving a similar update in another few years without much progress. And so this is a real priority for us to figure out how do we move forward together. As Kylan noted, the detainees that are entering CRCF, many of them have very high unmet needs. The majority are detoxing or using substances. Many are experiencing homelessness and have difficulty meeting their housing condition of pretrial release. And so that's why we, along with many of the other stakeholders in the women's facility group, see an urgent need to improve reentry supports for detainees at CRCF. And so as Kylan noted, and I'm sure you all have heard in other testimony, reentry services are really critical to preparing incarcerated people, including detainees, for accessible reentry following release. And these services center on meeting basic needs after release, including securing housing, treatment, enrolling in benefits. And successful reentry planning involves both community providers like DIVA's staff, as well as DOC caseworkers.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
What documents need to be secured?
Birth certificates.
Social security card,
Mhm.
Driver's license or non-driver ID card. Those are the three big ones.
Do a lot of the folks that don't have a birth certificate know where they were born?
Yeah, and I think the Department of Corrections can help anyone receive one who was born in Vermont. Out of state birth certificate is
More difficult?
yeah, or not possible for the department to get. They've found someone who can help with that. Those documents and the ID program are only for folks who have been sentenced and served 6 months.
So how many of the detainees you've been working with have served longer than 6 months? You know?
I'm not sure about a number. A lot.
How many of the detainees who have come in do not have a valid ID?
Majority.
Is it because their driver's license has been suspended, or?
Most of the time, they don't have any idea. People who are homeless aren't usually great at keeping track of where all the documentation is, or, you know, they're arrested and their belongings are in a purse at a police department somewhere else and are disposed of, or are at a friend's house and they can't go back there. So most of the people who are leaving are relying on the jail identification,
It's not much.
which is a printed out piece of paper.
Yeah, and that's not acknowledged out in the public as a valid
They
ID.
can use it for picking up medications and cashing a check. Is the main uses of that.
Questions?
I don't know if this is the right time or not, maybe there's a better time in the presentation. We heard about difficulty with federal detainees accessing legal services, to some degree, medical services. Maybe they go through too fast for you guys even to interact, but to what degree do you have interactions with federal detainees? And you have more trouble, how's it going there?
We work with, everyone who is incarcerated and in general population has access to our program. For folks that are detained by immigration services, they're usually only there for a number of days.
Yeah.
So if they're moving quickly and there's a language barrier, there's often very little overlap. We have seen an increase in the number of people who are detained by immigration. For folks that are federally detained, not in the immigration system, they can be there weeks to months. We work with a lot of those folks really regularly as well.
And those are coming in, just to clarify, those are coming in through the federal marshals in terms there is a federal crime that has been created that they were part of in Vermont.
Yes, and they
It's
are.
not a federal, it is not a criminal crime to cross the border. That's a civil, it is not
Yes.
criminal. But if there was drug dealing that was going on in a community and the drug task force and the federal government was involved one way, they would be housed through the federal marshals program, not the custom border patrol.
Yes,
So we have to be very clear on that.
yeah.
There is a
And
distinction.
I'm not positive the exact number of this, but I think there are 11 beds that are held for criminal federal detainees, and then I think 8 for immigration and customs.
Yep.
For the folks that are detained pending criminal charges, can be there anywhere, again, from like weeks to months. Most of the time, once they become sentenced, then they move into a different facility. I do know that the marshals do try to keep mothers in the facility if they can, so that visitation is possible.
Right. And then sort of a knock-on question about resources to the language question, whether it's federal or not, whoever it is. Do you have much occasion to use language resources, and what do you got?
In the instances where I've worked with people who need language services, the department has been really helpful in letting us use their third-party service, which is a translator on a cell phone.
Yeah.
We've also just used, we've reached out to not language line, it'll come back to me on that. We've reached out to another third-party service. A lot of times, you need to schedule it in advance, so more quickly we can use the DOC services or even just Google Translate type into each
So that
other.
was the last question. Yeah, so there is some occasion to use an app or whatever as opposed to a
Yes.
person. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that on your phone or is it on a state issued phone?
State issued phone, it's usually the shift supervisor, security shift supervisor's cell phone. They've let us use them to access language services.
Go ahead, Kevin.
How often have you not had the opportunity to have some kind of translation services? 5%, 50%?
I don't think there's ever been a time where we've been refused it. I think it just is a matter of how quickly the service is moving, how emergent it is, and if the person is interested in using it or not. Most folks actually prefer to type. So we'll use Google Translate on a laptop and type with each other.
Thank you.
So you're working with those folks under the federal marshal system as well as the ICE folks?
Yes.
You have access to language interpretation for folks who are being held by ICE?
Yes.
in our facilities?
Yes.
And that you are within the facility and you are using the supervisor's phone basically for that?
Yeah, they've come down to, when I was meeting, one specific instance was somebody who hadn't reached general population yet. They were still in the secure booking part. And the supervisor let us use one of the caseworker offices down there. We had to have the door open, but we could use the phone laying out on the table to use the communication service. In
Selective access.
Yes.
Selective access.
And so Kylan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the reason why you're able to use a shift supervisor's phone is because of your contract at DOC.
Yeah, it was a referral that I had received earlier that day of saying, we think that this person may be in need of your services while they're here. We did a little bit of typing, that wasn't working, so I went back to the people who made the referral in the building and said, I need to be able to speak to this person more clearly.
Of course, it is essential for all folks to be able to have that service.
Right.
We just heard some disturbing testimony the other day that for legal representation, they're not able through language barriers. Or even medical services through language barriers and lack of interpreters.
There are a few people who work in the building who speak a second language, and they'll often call on that person. They also just use other incarcerated individuals in the building to translate for them.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have to be that tough.
That's absolutely right.
This is really disturbing. It's selective inclusivity.
On the occasions that you've had,
It is.
you said you had access to the supervisor's office sometimes as well as the phone to provide services and they have translation. Is that just you two? It's like one-on-one, or are there other folks? I mean, you're being observed, right? That's correct.
Sure, yeah, it's the two of us, and then the shift supervisor stays nearby just because I'm using their cell phone, but it is just me and that individual.
Yeah, thanks. That's, yeah.
I mean, you need the supervision. I'm not saying you shouldn't be supervised there.
Yeah, I think just because I'm not someone who's supposed to have a state issued phone in the facility, and having access to a cell phone or internet in the facility is obviously something that should be monitored.
Kylan, do you want to talk a little bit about the confidential nature of your services as well?
Absolutely. I should have covered that earlier. So Divas is covered under victim crisis worker privilege, which all domestic and sexual violence advocates across the state are. But what that means is that Divas has the highest level of confidentiality in CRCF. Everything that we talk about, with the exception of child abuse, remains confidential in terms of anything working with folks who are experiencing domestic and sexual violence. For case collaboration, we do a lot of releases of information. For the most part, all of our safety planning and reentry services, our service users are not feeling like those need to remain confidential. They want the best plan possible and for us to be collaborating with other people. But those releases are really specific and time sensitive around who we're sharing information with and why, because all the other information about previous trauma relationships, how these scenarios may fit into their criminal history, remain confidential in the Divas office.
So when you're working with a sentenced person or a detainee person, and I know what you just said about confidentiality, do you help them at all through the legal system? Do you help them, something comes up and you think, maybe they need to talk to their lawyer about this? Does that happen? Is there an ability for them to connect with their legal representation through the criminal justice system?
I don't often reach out to lawyers. It would be a very specific situation. It would have to be something very specifically tied to domestic and sexual violence that an advocate from our office would reach out. What we do help people access is the Prisoners' Rights Organization. If there's something new or ongoing that we think is happening post-sentencing, it should be investigated or looked at, or interested in post-conviction relief. We do also work closely with prisoners' rights around some of the human trafficking expungement cases. A lot of times those referrals that we are making to them are, connections that we've made with somebody's experience. We're talking to them about the potential that this was human trafficking, and letting them know what their options are post-sentencing around expungement and vacating that sentence. We make those referrals, and then Prisoners' Rights does their own investigation, affidavit, all of those proceedings.
So for the women that you're working with, the sentenced or detainees, do they ever have trouble connecting with their lawyers, or their lawyers connecting with them? Are you aware? Because you're working intimately with the women's population, and you might hear things different than what DOC might hear from them. Are you hearing anything where the women are having a really difficult time getting access to their legal representation?
It's really difficult for women to reach out to their representation. I don't think there are structural barriers to representation reaching them in the facility. But it's not common that someone can call their lawyer.
So how does a lawyer connect with a person who's incarcerated in a women's facility that you're aware of?
There's a secure lawyer line, so they call the correctional facility through a specific phone number.
Phone?
Yes, and that's like an unmonitored phone line. But for a lot of people, even if they have their lawyer's number on, say, their pin sheet, everybody has 10 people that they can call. Using a facility phone, if there's like a press 1 option, once you reach the lawyer's office, you can't make that distinction on the phone. So unless they have a direct line to their lawyer, calling a law office is not really.
The lawyer calls in.
Yes.
Speak. And what do they do if they're need interpretation for language at that point? Do you know? You may not have experienced any of that. Just curious. Because that's a landline, so I'm just curious.
I would assume that the lawyer is calling with their own language services if they're calling in with someone, calling into somebody who needs that support.
Thank you. James?
I have what hopefully is a simple question. You said everything you talk about is confidential except for child abuse. Do you mean like if they tell you they either did it themselves or have knowledge of it, or is there something else do you mean by that child abuse is not confidential?
Any conversation about child abuse and neglect, we make a report to the Department of Children and Families, and we let folks know that as well. It's always something I let people know up front. If they were reporting to me that something was happening to a child that they knew about in the community, that would be a report that we would make as well.
And that is because staff are mandated reporters.
Yes, that's under
Mandated
Yeah.
reporters, yeah.
I assume that's what you meant, but
Of course.
sometimes you assume things and it turns out somebody meant something very different, so.
So recognizing here, the short time we have together.
Keep going.
So
Friday, because we're not meeting later on this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. So in response to capacity restrictions, at CRCF, DOC case managers can only provide services to sentenced individuals and not detainees. DOC updated its policy in response to those capacity restrictions in 2024. And I'm sure that you've heard another testimony with staffing gaps across the system. Even the existing caseworkers are often diverted to stand in for correctional officers or operate remote court, which prevents them from providing the casework that is core to their job. And so the consequences of unmet needs for reentry services are really profound. Detainees are released to situations that are unsafe, where they don't have their basic needs met, and where they have a high likelihood of reoffending. These are people with substance use disorder who are released without a treatment plan. They are survivors of domestic violence who have no option other than returning to an unsafe home. They're released without housing or employment. And, we were talking about IDs, something as simple as, you are taken into custody in the summer, you are released in the winter, and you don't have clothes that are weather appropriate. And so, there are some reentry supports like DIVA staff that can support with those concrete things. But not having DOC caseworkers able to really support detainees and collaborate more closely with those community-based providers does a real disservice to them. When folks are put in situations where they're likely to reoffend and return to the facility, especially with numbers like we're seeing, that's not appropriate. And there are also detainees that could be eligible to be in the community awaiting trial if they had support in meeting their conditions of relief, like securing housing or a treatment bed, but they can't because they don't have the support they need from caseworkers. And this means they're incarcerated longer than required. And in any situation, this would be an injustice. But particularly now with the conditions at CRCF, it's a real concern. So there is one thing that we can do in addition to continuing conversations about a new women's facility. And that is increasing grant fee services capacity at CRCF. Currently, there are about 5 caseworkers at CRCF, and we estimate that about 3 to 5 additional caseworkers are needed to meet the specific reentry needs of detainees. That added staff capacity would also necessitate a revision to the departmental policy to allow those caseworkers to provide reentry services to detainees. Yes, Representative Casey.
Oh, sure. Charlie, do you know, so those are 5 bodies you have there for caseworkers. Are there any positions that have been created that are vacant at the moment that haven't been filled? So are you asking to create more positions or fill vacancies?
We're asking to create more positions. It's my
Okay.
understanding that there's possibly 1 caseworker that might be in transition, but these are additional services that are needed, additional people.
Okay. It'd be great just before DOC comes in with their budget presentation, we can really break that down because we're looking to get in the weeds this year.
Absolutely.
I think I have 2 sort of nitpicky related questions. One is, I don't know if these are terms of art. Is there anybody providing services to detainees? Is there anybody sort of excluded from DOC caseworkers? Like, is there anybody else available to them doing this stuff?
DOC staff members.
I guess so, yes.
So yeah, Kylie, you can speak a little bit to how community-based providers interact with DOC caseworkers.
Yeah, I would say all of the contracted services can provide emotional support, education programming, the things that we do. But any sort of like pretrial release or information about what's going to happen at court or anything all goes through their lawyer. There is a caseworker at the facility who is has more detainees on their caseload than other people, but they can't assist with making calls or referrals to treatment programs or transitional housing.
Right. And then when it comes to the 3 to 5 additional workers and the revision of policy, I assume whoever's there is already busy as can be, but is there any value in the revision of policy alone? Or does that do nothing without the additional resources?
The policy was revised because of the lack of staff capacity.
Yeah.
It's something that I think is worth conversation, but of course, a policy without the capacity to really provide the services won't do us as much good.
Yeah, right. Got it. Yeah, so, okay, thanks.
So in a hypothetical scenario where you got your policy revisions and you got 5 new caseworkers next week, where would they work? Would it be space in the facility?
Well, I think that it's a great question. I'm sure that the Department of Corrections would be happy to speak to it. As you know, the physical space restrictions of CRCF do continue to restrict programming. I don't know, Kylan, if you have any other thoughts on that.
It is sort of a jigsaw puzzle in there of how people are fit together. I think with how busy the casework team is currently, new positions would certainly be welcome and people would make space.
So we're just talking here for the caseworkers and the specific numbers within the facility. I want to go back to the previous page or the previous. In response to capacity restrictions, DOC updated where they were specifying that DOC caseworkers can only provide casework to sentenced. Is that throughout the system or just Chittenden facility?
That is throughout the
So
system.
we're having the same impact with the males.
That's correct.
Because our detainee population in the male facilities have increased dramatically as well, where we have almost 480 to 500 of our incarcerated males are detainees. So they're up against this as well.
That's absolutely
Detainees.
That's absolutely right. And I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. The Department of Corrections would have them, or I can follow up. But the rate increase of women detainees is more significant than detention.
Fortunately, right, because it's almost half of it's a little bit more than half of the population of that facility where the males get spread out over 5 other facilities, but that's not to say that those issues aren't percolating in those male facilities as well. And I
Yes,
don't want people to forget that.
yes,
Mhm.
and neither do we. And, you know, I think this is a service that everyone, regardless of their gender, regardless of where they're held, should have access to. And it is a question of what is possible. If there is an opportunity to, for example, pilot some reentry services for detainees at CRCF and revisit next year, that's something that we would be interested in. And I'm sure that the Department of Corrections can speak a bit to how that might be possible. I did just want to note that while we are speaking, this proposal was not created by us alone and was outlined in the memo shared on December 16th. And many of the partner organizations are really committed to these issues, and we're really grateful for their collaboration. Well, we have been through quite a marathon together here.
Yeah.
Kylan and I
Thank you for
are
your time.
very appreciative of you taking the time. We'd be happy to reconnect or answer anything.
Sure, so like money's tight, space is even tighter, right? And I have like no confidence that we're on track for a particular timeline for the replacement.
Mhm.
Do you have any other suggestions, just how to make things more tolerable in the meantime, you know, given the limitations? Is there anything we can do over here? Because I'm really worried, you know, just people are languishing for years and years here.
Yes, we certainly share that concern. You know, I would say that looking into meeting program needs within CRCF is a critical piece of that. You know, while we're interested in more data around what is driving that rise in detainees, we do know that if there are some people who, if they had support in meeting their conditions of release, they wouldn't be there. Marilyn, is there anything else you would add?
I would say the exact same thing. What we were able to do, that group of contractors with that small amount of money that we had, was really substantial in helping people meet, again, those like basic needs, you know, outstanding bills, back rent, things that were holding them there that they could be awaiting trial from the community instead.
Thank you.
Joe?
I think to Brian's point for detained populations, and maybe it's a cap on it, but you know, maybe somebody's detained for whatever certain period of time, they could be eligible.
For services, you mean?
Yes. And I mean, basically, it appears though they're not, somebody could be detained for 2 years and they're not eligible. How does that?
For the caseworker, lack of space, lack of staff,
The OC's choice based on services, right?
right? Space and staff.
I mean,
Yeah.
conceivably, you could have somebody detained longer than somebody sentenced.
And this really raises the issue that these are issues that you get involved in when you're co-mingling the detainee population with the sentence population. In the ideal world, the detained population would be held in St. Johnsbury. It would be held in Marble Valley and Rutland. And would be held at a separate part of the facility in Springfield, because Springfield was designed specifically for the regional piece, which is holding your detainees, and the central facility, which is holding your sentence. But now we commingle everything. And that's part of an issue. These issues, this is what arises when we do that.
One more trend that I'd just like to add is for people that are detained for a really long time, if it's upwards of a year or 18 months, sometimes they'll get to trial and be sentenced to time served and then are
And then
released
they're
that day. So they never have access to any case management services in the entire time they're there.
So one thing that we are looking at, and we don't know where we're gonna head with this, is at least the ID piece. Like right now, it's only available to sentence folks who have been there for 6 months minimum. And we're looking to also include detainees who have been there for 6 months. We think it may be a simple fix, but nothing is simple in this building. But that's one tiny, tiny little piece that might help a little bit.
That would make a great impact on the detained population.
Anything else?
Even though you're shoveling against the tide, you were an encouragement to hear of what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hear all that.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you. And I know we asked you questions that were kind of out of your realm, but the information you gave was helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Enjoy the
And
weekend.
let's connect after we finish here, so don't go far. That's a wrap for the week. Goodness,
That was a long one.
what a tough week.
Yeah.
That's a tough week. We got a lot of work to do, folks, ahead of us. We got a lot of little subgroups working, so I would encourage you to spend some time on that and work with us too in terms of the schedule. The other thing, folks, I'm gonna try to do is, we've got some bills up on the wall that have come in this year. And then one that maybe we could use as a vehicle to help with the accountability court, and updating the treatment for folks who are on MOED. It would be nice if we could spend some time on all those bills that we have identified and really get them out of here.
Yep.
And one of those is the commissary and telecommunications. So we've got two little subgroups working on that. If you could start working, that will help our workflow, because I don't want to get caught the last week in February or the week we get back from town meeting break with a crunch to get these bills out, because that's when crossover will be, week after town meeting. So if we can get some of those bills out and in the process would be a help while we're working on the budget adjustment for the cap. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So for these little subcommittees that are established, and maybe what we need to do is sit down next week with Tate and really list the groups and list who's on them, so we all know. That would be a big help. And you would know too what you're supposed to be doing. All right.
Just wanted to take the temperature because we got 5 of us on the budget subgroup there. When is a good time to come up with this?
We can
Yeah.
have a plan going forward. And I can help you maybe with that document too, so that you can understand what your real focus is for that. Anything else before we finish up for the week? Kind of hope everybody has a good weekend and